charging away.
And now they can see us and they can hear us, so we are live. Everything is good. So, welcome here, Javier. Happy to have you on. We know each other from the past, the past 2 years. But we have not done anything like this before.
No, not at all. But thank you very much for having me in your channel. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, the topic we will have is very interesting if you are into the blockchain space, if you are on the WAX ecosystem and you want to learn more about what the governance actually looks on WAX, because we are a blockchain and each blockchain has some kind of governance. On the WAX blockchain, you actually have some kind of active governance system where you have, currently it's 3 individual people, individual groups that evaluate the teams that run the infrastructure on WAX. And each period there's an election to get someone you vote for whoever gets elected, and in that person or that group gets elected and has the chance to evaluate all the teams that run the blockchain to make sure that the inflation, the tokens actually go to teams that contribute to the WAX ecosystem. So that's a short what this is, and Javier is one of the guys that has applied. So let's dig right into it. So tell us a little bit, who are you and what should we learn about you?
Well, in short, my name is Javier Mendonça, for those who don't know me or haven't seen me on Telegram or Twitter in the WAX or EOS.io channels. I have a background in engineering, and I have worked as a software developer, actually as an Android engineer for the last 10 years approximately.
Yeah, and you said Android engineer, and you have just released an app for the WAX ecosystem. So a few people have actually downloaded it and used it, and they like it. So it's great. Yeah,
exactly. I saw the statistics a few days ago, and I think it was around 70 people. So
that's more than I anticipated. So that's great.
Yeah.
And the app, by the way, we can, I haven't linked it below, but I know it's linked on Telegram in a few places, and we can link it below in later. But you can download it and you will get a notification on your phone whenever there's a drop in Atomic Hub. So you make these drops where you go to a page you can claim, or sometimes you pay something to get it. A lot of times it's just something for free, so you get a notification something is coming up, perhaps now or in a few hours or in a few days, and you get to see everything.
Yeah, exactly. And basically I developed that app. Initially I was doing it for myself because I missed, I think it was the Blockchain Heroes drop or something. I don't know, there was some of them that I dropped. I mean, it happens that, I don't know, there are so many of these drops constantly being released all the time. I just missed some, and I was like, I should build something that lets me know when something up is coming. And then on the process, I thought like, well, but this could actually benefit the whole community. Why not to do it open source and release it to the public? So that's what I did.
Yeah, exactly. You built it, it's open source, it's released, people can use it, and it works great. And so far you have done a few updates to improve it. You find something that can be better, or Pink Network, it makes an update, they change the format, and you have to fix it. And drops has not been here for so long. I think it's like 6 weeks or something. The first drop started to come out from the community. If even that far. The first one was one of the sales. Was it Cogs was the first one, or was it Blockchain Heroes?
I think it was either Blockchain Heroes or I think it was Blockchain Heroes actually.
Yeah, they were first, and then we have the other
thing
ones.
Is like there are so many coming on all the time that I even lost track of time. I really don't know which one came first, but
all I remember is that Alien Worlds is the latest, and that the first sale is sold out, so that's good.
Exactly.
So you're an Android developer. Where do you live? What's your background? Do you want to share anything about that?
Well, I live in Sweden, in Stockholm actually. So we met a few times before, and have been living here for about 9 years already. And basically all the time my working experience have been in Sweden, and I have been working with basically multiple companies across different industries. So from like finance to like retailers and night events and multiple type of companies, both like startups and also big corporations like banks.
Yeah.
So So yeah, that's more or less what I do nowadays, and I have been basically into the Wax and EOS.io ecosystem since I heard of Dan Larimer explaining the concept in Consensus. I think it was in 2017 or something.
Yeah.
I got thrilled by the idea, so I was following it like almost religiously since then.
Yeah, we met in the very early EOS communities.
Yeah, exactly. So, and before that, I mean, I was in the cryptocurrency space. I don't remember exactly since when, but probably 2014 or 15, somewhere around there. But I never like developed anything or was like very actively into it, but I was like following groups and following all the news, everything that was going on and so on.
Yeah. So that is your background a little bit on that you have been in the blockchain space and everything, and you lived in Sweden the last decade pretty much. And one of the companies that you work for is the biggest, I would say, house market in Sweden. Well, it's almost the only one. I don't think people use anything else in Sweden to buy and sell homes. Everyone uses that one. Almost.
Yeah, there are a few others, but we can say that Hemnet is pretty much the one that covers like 99% of the market.
Yeah, so you work with their Android app and make sure that it works and adds features.
Yeah.
So that's nice. And I mean, what brought you to Wax? Let's start from your perspective there.
Yeah. Well, when I think we all learned from NFTs or the concept of NFTs back in Ethereum when they were launching all these like assets and when they released all this was the proposal for adding like non-fungible tokens to the blockchain, some standard. But we never saw like something really going on there because of, well, many reasons: the fees, all the user interface. I mean, it's mostly for like developers than for normal people, if we can say so.
Yeah.
And yeah, I learned them from Wax because Wax, as I mean, many people might not know this, but they started on Ethereum. And then as soon as they saw what Dan Larimer was doing with EOS.io, they thought like directly to jump into that train. So I have been following that since then, and I saw like what they were trying to achieve was mind-blowing because at that time, like, you didn't have a good way to exchange like let's say assets on a game or subscriptions or all these concepts that we haven't even figured out what we will be using NFTs for, but we can see there is a huge potential. And if you see like at the current market nowadays, which it would be like the gaming industry, would be like the most straightforward application, let's say, you can see that, I mean, in the last, I don't know, 5 years or so, I mean, that it has been skyrocketing as in the entertainment branch, let's say. So in my mind, it's going to be obvious that, I don't know, in some point in the future, maybe not in 1-2 years, but maybe in 5 years or so, you would see like people playing whatever, World of Warcraft or all these games where you can have assets, and then you will be just trading them freely using cryptocurrencies. And this is something that Wax is providing, and not only providing it at a very like it's basically providing it in a way that is super easy to do to use for any user. Like with the cloud wallet, for instance, is super simple. I mean, you just need to sign up with an email or a social media account, which pretty much everyone has, and everyone knows
they
how
have
to
either
operate.
an email or a social media for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought this was extremely interesting, and yeah, I have been here since basically they started pushing stuff, and the more it progresses, the more exciting it gets, because then you see that Wax has been creating some very important partnerships with big brands as such as Tops, for instance, and some other like gaming companies, and having all these people from very big corporations such as Google, Microsoft, and so on in their council. So I think it's just going to be great.
Yeah, and I agree. And to go back to what you said, the cloud wallet really makes things easy for us that come from the Ethereum and the EOS wallets and our experiences, that is way more difficult than a cloud wallet. But those that come from a native app in a phone, a cloud wallet is still a bit tricky to figure out. And hopefully we will see that change with the next iteration, because the cloud wallet is supposed to be updated very soon. I cannot drop a date, but it is soon. And not soon as the way Wax has done it. They always say something comes soon, but it should come before the end of month, if nothing goes wrong. So that will be very exciting to see what happens.
Yeah, especially because nowadays many people are so used to interact with their mobile phones. So me,
everyone
for instance,
but me.
Exactly, me as a mobile developer, I mean, it's like I use the phone for pretty much anything but coding. So yeah, definitely, it will be exciting to see what they bring us.
Yeah, and I'm the kind of person that if I don't need to use my phone, I'm the most happy guy ever. But that's because I have 4 monitors in front of me. I rather sit here with these desktops than use my phone that is so small and clumsy and slow and yeah.
Yeah, it brings different experiences.
Yeah, and kinda you also answered this in the first question because I actually sent you some questions so you could prepare your mind and start to iterate ideas in your head. But what is Wax for you? You kind of answered that in the last question. Perhaps you want to add something to it.
Yeah, I mean, well, Wax for me is the go-to place when the place you would go if you want to trade or do anything with NFTs.
Yeah,
that's it. It's that simple.
We saw that so good today because today the Alien Worlds had sold out. The Wax, as soon as, because that dropped in price, as soon as it dropped for the price that people want, the Wax one was poof in seconds, in minutes, it was gone, all of them. And the Ethereum one, when that dropped to the price that people wanted to buy them, there was over 1,900 packs. And people were buying them, and it took minutes for the transactions to be processed and packs to start to send out. So people were sitting here waiting, didn't know if something was broken, if we get something, because we are not used to wait for minutes, because we are used to Wax Wallet where it works in seconds. And in this sale, the Wax Cloud Wallet had no issues whatsoever. We had a few hiccups that were solved very, very quickly. But it was very, very good user experience to feel how Ethereum actually works, that we have to wait for minutes. And none of us are used to that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I remember back in the days when there was only, let's say, Beacon and Ethereum, I sometimes used to go to Ethereum just to make the transaction faster, right? Nowadays, it's like, I just want to go to Wax or EOS to make the transaction faster because, I mean, especially with the fees that we have been seeing on Ethereum. So.
Yeah, and I mean, sending Ethereum is pretty fast, but using it for contracts where you have to wait the confirmation and everything, that takes more time and it's more difficult. If you just want to transfer Ethereum, it's cheap and it's easy, except that you need to learn how to use some wallets, but the transfer itself is not that difficult. You copy paste a key and hopefully it goes correctly. We actually just got a comment that great application, Javier, so we like your app, so that's nice.
Thank you.
And let's dig into today's subject. So what is governance for you? And now governance, let's focus on the blockchain governance.
Yeah, well, governance, it's basically like, a set of rules of what can be done and what cannot be done. And this applies both for, let's say, a government or in this case, a blockchain, and for any open society or community. And in the blockchain, we have basically these sets of, let's say, what is it that can be done, and let's say how to act in case of something unexpected happens, or let's say in case of a hack or all these things. So governance basically, you can have off-chain governance, and how we see recently in proof of stake, or in this case, how is it called, DPoS chains. You have on-chain governance when all these rules are encoded in the blockchain itself. So.
Yeah, and that is one important part, that they are encoded in the blockchain. Everything outside of that are up to like what people think.
Yeah, exactly. It becomes very subjective, and then when high stakes are in place, people start thinking a little bit more rationally or put the feelings on the line. So if the thing is written in the smart contract, you know that this is what is going to be executed, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, both of us have been in the EOS ecosystem, and we have seen what happens when you have a third-party layer on top of a blockchain that should deal with the governance. What is your take on that? And that's ECAF, if someone doesn't know.
Yeah, I mean, I believe. I mean, the thing is, like, in case of ECAF, well, it was a mess, because I think any people could basically become like an arbitrator, and I don't know, like demand whatever they wanted basically from the blockchain, and that didn't make any sense. But I believe, like, even though a third layer can make things messy, there are certain things that are difficult, if not impossible, to encode in a smart contract.
Yeah.
For example, in the one of the tasks that the
Inspector Generals.
Yeah. Correct. You read my mind. Yeah, that they do is basically to evaluate, like, the block producers or the wax guilds in how they perform, what value they provide to the blockchain, basically. And for instance, if you speak about a product, how valuable is this product to the blockchain? I mean, maybe you can measure. There are measurements, like, okay, maybe daily active users, you could use this as a measurement, but in some point it becomes like very difficult to code in a smart contract. So in that sense, the let's say the human sense could provide certain help and help deciding this.
Yeah, and worth pointing out here is that the for anyone listening that may not be that into it, is that the inspector generals, their job is not really to govern the chain. Their job is to evaluate the teams that are running the infrastructure and to make sure that they contribute to the ecosystem. And what he means for this, like, for an example, we have team EOS Cafe. They built blocks. Everyone uses blocks. We have a Pink Network. They built Atomic Assets and Atomic Hub. We have Crypto Alliance. They built Simple Assets and Simple Market. I'm part of Wax Sweden. I run this channel. I do other things. And now they need to rank us in different measurements that is hard to encode in the blockchain. How much value does the live streaming here, the interviews, everything here does for the ecosystem, and compared to blocks and compared to Atomic Hub, it's important in different layers, and this is what he's talking about.
And one thing that I think is important is, of course, not to rely on one person or one single entity, let's say. In the case of the generals, there are a few of them, so it's basically a consensus among them. And this is very important, I think, because if it would be one person deciding those scores, well, it would become like a dictatorship, basically. Like, one person could decide, or could be maybe biased. So when there are more people, it's better, more democratic, because then, let's say, if one person would have some sort of bias towards certain guild, then the others will point this out. So it will balance things in the equation.
Because, as you say, they are independent, so they each evaluate each team, what they are doing, and together that sums up to some kind of a rating for the team. And the team gets paid based on their rating. So the rating, the rating doesn't impact the pay at all. The rating is to rate the guilds, and then the token holders, and the major token holders is the Wax team right now, and they use the direct impact from the guidelines. They use it to vote. They don't have to do that, but they do that. They honor it 100%, and they put people, the top 21 in this ranking gets to the top 21.
Yeah, and it also helps Wax token holders to vote as well. As a token holder, you can vote for your favorite guilds, the ones that you believe they are providing value, and this helps them. I mean, based on how the Wax blockchain works, you have these top 21 guilds that help validate the transactions in the blockchain. So your votes basically help push your guild up in the ranking.
Yeah. And that is good. So I guess we will get into that a little bit. But for you, what should a guild do? And this is a very open question.
Yeah. Well, the guild, I mean, to begin with, is same as a block producer on EOS or miners in Bitcoin or Ethereum. So basically, their main task is to validate the transactions that are happening on the blockchain, right? Then, of course, the thing about it is that in the case of Wax, you can just download the software, put this software running into some server or computer or whatever, and you, in theory, could be one of them. So then they started, the inspector generals, they start creating this framework to say, okay, what else can the guilds do in order to like differentiate themselves? So they start adding different metrics like product development or business development. In the side of technical operations, different criteria like what could make this particular guild stand over the others. So it's all about interacting. I mean, doing the producing the blocks for the blockchain, but also I think whatever provides value to the ecosystem as a whole.
And that is when it gets interesting, because it's very hard to evaluate how much a team adds, because a lot of teams put in a lot of work and a lot of effort, and then you have to evaluate what people do and compare it to what other people do. It's good that you have some kind of different areas where people work on, but it's a difficult job to do it, and I agree with that. They need to add value to the ecosystem, and that is very important. We actually have a question here, and is the fact that the Wax team owns most tokens why people say Wax isn't actually decentralized, or are there other reasons? And I can answer that pretty quickly, and that is, they use the tokens in their development fund. So they have a fund that they use to develop the ecosystem. They use that and vote with. And then also there is this EOS.io account, which is the smart contract on the blockchain, and that is still controlled by the Wax system. As soon as they change that to the top 21 producers, then the Wax team don't have the same power anymore, and that is supposed to happen soon, Wax soon, whatever that means. But there's not really a rush for that, because right now the Wax team, when they build things and upgrade the network and everything, it's all good. And if they do something wrong we don't like, what we actually can do is we can stop, we can take a snapshot of the chain, we can start a new chain with everything exactly the same as it is, just ignore whatever they did as a change, and that is a fork. So that has happened, like Bitcoin did it for Bitcoin Cash. So that's what they did. It's the same chain, they just take it. Some people still want to use the old one, they like the change. Some people think no, you did it wrong, and now we have two chains. So that is what happens.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the second part, so like burning your keys when you found so the second part is sort of like burning your keys when you found a DAO. Yeah, kinda, except that you still have this power, but you need, like, you have 21 top producers. And burning, for anyone that says burning the DAO, burning the key is that you can't change anything anymore. You have no key to change anything. But what happens here is that you have top 21 teams, and teams are distributed all over the world. You need 15 of them to sign any change of the chain. So you need 15 teams to collaborate and think, yeah, we need to do this change, and everyone needs to sign it or it won't happen. So it's a little bit changed. Sukesh, I think you will have to tune back before we have talked a little bit about Javier's background, what governance is for him, what should a guild on Wax do, and everything. So, okay. And this, we have talked about it a little bit, but you have at least mentioned that it's a little bit difficult. But how should we evaluate guilds in a fair way based on different contributions? And for this, I'm gonna use teams that we know what they are doing. So I will use Pink Network, that has built Atomic Hub, Atomic Assets. I will use Cafe, that has built blocks. So these are two very powerful tools that we all use. I will use our own guild. We do a lot of open APIs. So this is backend infrastructure. And we do this community outlet. I'm active in all the channels, helping community members, writing guides and everything. And that is very different from building the Atomic Hub, Atomic Assets, and it's very different from building blocks or Crypto Alliance, which has done the simple asset and the simple market. So how can we fairly work with this, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, that's a very interesting question, and this is exactly why we have like different categories to help scoring different guilds. As you mentioned, for instance, running this channel is different from running whatever Atomic Hub, for instance. It not necessarily needs to be that is more or less. It's just a different metric. So I think what is important is to differentiate what are all the possible possibilities on how the guilds can provide value to the network. Nowadays, I don't remember exactly how many criteria there are, but there are like 4 or 5 categories. But this doesn't mean that those are all of them. I mean, you can always, this is an iterative process. What was working 5 months ago is not working today, and it's always some fine tuning, right? So I believe as long as we keep improving this process and we keep fine tuning, basically it will be basically for the best of the blockchain. And I think all these changes is not like the inspector generals just dictate what is important or not. This is something that is a constant dialogue between the generals and the guilds and even the WAX team, I believe.
Yeah, that is very correct. All these three, so that is nice.
Because this is the whole idea. I mean, the way I see it is like we're all in the same ship, right? It's not like one team doing their stuff and the other one doing their thing. I mean, we're all contributing in some way to the WAX ecosystem. So the way I see it is like we should be open to this, transparent, have all these discussions, put as much as we can on chain so that those things are recorded there permanently, and move the ecosystem forward together.
Yeah, that is nice. And I don't think I really need to comment on that anymore. This is it's supposed to be what you think and everything, and that's very good. And one important thing that you actually mentioned is that if we just go deeper in it, is that you wanted more things to be on chain, and right now this whole process of validating team are not on chain. Is that's what's your take there?
Well, I mean, to begin with, let's say nowadays and this is open data. I mean, you can go to the inspector generals have a Notion document where they have all these records, let's say like historical records. For every month they create a new entry and so on. But this is Notion, right? I mean, the same as any other centralized platform. You can just delete this one day or whatever. So I think like it's very important to have historical data because it gives the new officers perspective into what had happened and how, let's say, the guilds have evolved. Because one thing that I see that there is a bit of lack in the current framework is that there is no so much like long-term perspective. So there are many guilds that could just, in theory, jump in, copy some open source projects and say like, yeah, we are developing this as well. And in theory, you could get points for that. So I believe that if you then can see, I mean, if putting this thing on the blockchain to begin with, give you this historical data that will not be changed. So you will see like who did what in which point of time. And then you can see, for instance, if we take the example of Pink GG, you will see like, okay, they started developing this, then they continue with that, then they did this, and then you can see maybe like a trend and evaluate, okay, maybe have a metric, I don't know, like a long-term vision metric or whatever, however you can call it, and give some score based on that as well. So.
And that is good. Yeah.
No, continue.
No, we actually had a question, and I think you kind of answered it right now. Do you have? It's Sukesh, and he's one of the other guys that also run for this Inspector General place, and I will have an interview with him next week as well. So, do you have any specific proposals or ideas for how to? I guess you mean for how to build onto the system of Inspector Generals and everything.
Well. Not something that I have like in the top of my mind right now, because to begin with, I think the first things that I would be doing if I get elected is basically to get familiar with all the work that they have been doing, even though I have been following this, it's not like I have been part of the governance, so I don't know all the details. But I believe, let's say, automating the way we collect all the technical data, for instance, these things could be automated for the most, and then those things that are, let's say, less automatable, like the way let's say guilds provide data to the generals in order to let's say make the evaluation. I think there can be also improvements on that side. So I think as long as we keep like this let's say hunger for keep developing the platform and making improvements to it, then it would basically become better for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, sounds great. And what I really like about this is you have not been in any of these discussions before all the governance. You have what you have the information you have gotten is perhaps what you have done as a research the last few days, but also what you have been following. Because I know, because we communicate sometimes a lot, sometimes more seldom. But we communicate about a lot of things in a lot of places, not just the Wax ecosystem, but EOS and other projects as well. So I know that you keep up with everything, and it shows when you can actually answer these kind of questions. So that makes me happy. And yeah, and I guess that also answered, because we have two hypothetical questions, and I think we will push them to the end. We have like how you want to impact OEGs and the guilds on the Wax blockchain, and you kind of answered that right now. But do you have anything else to add to that? Like how you think you
well,
can add
I mean, the more create more collaboration and make everything more transparent, and I think is I mean, based on what I can see from from outside, let's say, is kind of transparent enough. I can go into the Notion document and see all the notes that they have added there and stuff, but maybe there are like, I don't know, communications that are lost in some private channels and so on, probably. But as long as I think like more cooperation, listening more to the feedback of the guilds, because I feel like I mean, you guys run the network and you probably have a lot things to say. You might have your biases, but you also have a lot of perspectives that the inspector generals don't have, because even though currently some of them are technical and some of them even run guilds, in theory the person in the inspector general's office could be whoever, you know, could be a writer or could be a painter. I mean, it doesn't need to be anyone technical. So I think it's very important to keep this dialogue and listen to what you guys think, what can be better, what was worse if the inspector generals made a mistake or are taking some course in the wrong direction or whatever. I think this is all fine tunable.
Yeah, and that is good. And we actually have a question. If you go back before you started this process, before you applied for the OEGs and you started this mind, what brought you here, before you started it, has something changed in the way you see the OEG system and everything compared to now?
That's interesting. Well, I have learned much more about how it works. Of course, like before, I used to follow, even though I followed the blockchain as a whole, I didn't know like the little details on how this process is done, let's say. So one thing that I learned was that the inspector generals make a when they want to make a change on the framework, they basically send out this as a draft to all the guilds. Then they get the feedback from you, and then basically together reach some consensus.
And I can dig into that. Sometimes it's very well, emotional talk, and sometimes it's more objective talk, because it may or may not impact both this review of the changes, but also when the result comes, it may impact people's their whole team may drop in how much pay they get. They have a hard time to pay all their employees or themselves or whatever, because some teams are just one person, some teams are more people. So it's a little bit different there. So and everyone is proud of their work, and what you do when you change how you evaluate teams. They need to adapt, they need to change some things. Some team can just continue to push forward, and some has to adapt a little bit more, because something they thought that they were good for is a little bit pushed aside, and something else get lifted up, and they have to adapt, and that can create a lot of emotion from a team that is very passionate.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine, of course you will be always proud of your work, but I think in this case, like, of course, it's easier to say than to do it, but if you detach a bit yourself from your emotions, and you look at it as like what's best for the whole community and what's best for the ecosystem, then it would perhaps be easier to have those conversations.
Yeah, and that is very difficult, and there is, I mean, I am sometimes very vocal, because I think that it's very important that we don't evaluate all the teams the same. It's very important for me, because I have a view where I think the whole school system in the world is broken, because they try to test everyone the exact same way, and people are different. They should be tested, and they should be educated in ways that they have interest, what they are good at, so they can grow in a better pace. And I think that these ratings need to have some kind of way to show that, so people, like a framework usually, well, there's a saying, as soon as the metric is the goal, the metric doesn't work anymore. And that is what happens with the framework. When you have a metric, people start to chase the metric instead of chasing the goal. Do you see any way that can be worked on? Do you see it as a problem? Do you see it as something good? What's your take here?
I think you have a very valid point there, but at the same time, I also believe that, I mean, somehow you need to have like a baseline in order to normalize all the guilds. And of course, perhaps some guilds are more, let's say, technical than others. Some are more vocal, and it would be difficult to compare them, let's say, one to one, because maybe you will do like great videos, but some other guild doesn't do it, and not because of that your guild is better than theirs. Is as I mentioned before, it's just a different thing. So I think you have a very good point there. Actually, it should be, if we could find like a way to not to put all the guilds in the same bucket, let's say, and somehow create a way to maybe rank them or give them score based on what they are better at or good at. That would definitely be an improvement.
Yeah, and I am well aware of that. That is very hard to do, because then you need to rank, let's say, this YouTube channel, and compare that to Atomic Hub and Blocks. You need to rate us, and if you increase the blocks one, do you need to decrease one of the other, or like, how do you evaluate what is actually good? Or like, we have an open API that gets a lot of requests. Pink Guys has an open API that gets a lot of requests. All other teams has open APIs, but they don't get a lot of requests. I know there's some more. And we all get the same score for that because of this baseline. And that may not be a problem, but there's this situation where teams get evaluated when they have a better service for the same way as someone that has let's say a rate limited service.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not very easy to do, and this is one thing that I keep attacking.
It's definitely not an easy thing to do, but and I think, I mean, if you think, if we go a step back and we think like, what's the, like, let's say the primarily the primary objective of the guild is basically to produce blocks, let's say. That would be like the essential thing. So maybe that could be the baseline, let's say. If you're able to produce blocks, everyone in now in the top 21 are able to do it. Well, that's why they are there, even in the standbys. But then you should maybe start looking, as you mentioned, like, okay, you are running the history API. Like, there are, let's say, few guilds running the history API, but I don't know, maybe 2 of them are super used while the other 2 are not so used. So perhaps you could give some weight to that. Yeah.
And this is very hard.
yeah. Or when it comes to maybe the latency, the reliability of their network connection, I mean, all that. Yeah, it's very difficult.
Yeah,
But I think, I mean, even though it's difficult, it's not impossible. And I think, I mean, there is plenty of not documentation, but yeah, studies on how to rank, let's say, IT systems and so on. So I think if we start digging into those things, we will find ways to improve what we currently have.
I think it's a good answer, and something that you felt that I'm emotional about. So that's
I saw you got a bit red.
It's the light. No. No, but like I come from the EOS background, and currently right on the EOS, full history is his history that has all the data on the blockchain. There is currently one that is up. And that is ours. So there is one there, and we do not want to see that same situation on Wax. There are more that has most of the information, but they have blacklisted some, so they don't have all the data. So there's only one API on EOS that has all the data on the blockchain. And for me, on a public chain, that is very important. And for a user, you need to be able to get all your history to file taxes or whatever you need your history for. And it's very important to have more than some APIs just have the last 1,000 transactions per account and things like that. That's not good enough.
Yeah, I think especially I mean, if you have 21 block producers on EOS, I mean, you should have at least half of them or something having this, because it's
at least a few. I mean, it's very costly to have these full APIs.
I mean, not only costly, but imagine if your servers get hit by a lightning or something, and the data is lost. That's it.
That happened for a guild on Wax.
Yeah, that's why I said it. I mean, then suddenly your EOS, the EOS network is without historical data. I mean, this. There's
still historical data, but not 100%.
Not all. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean. That I mean, of course, you need more resilience on that. Definitely.
Yeah. And you can replay it, but it takes months. It doesn't take days. But that's good. And now I actually have a few questions, and I shared these with people that are currently in the Inspector Generals and some guilds. And I got some different answers here, where some people think these are 100% irrelevant for an Inspector General. But from my perspective, I think it's very relevant because it shows what kind of person you are, how you view these kind of problems that may or may not come up, because I think that someone that gets the title Inspector General on Wax, they get some kind of influence over people, the guilds, their voice gets a little bit higher meaning, the same way people listen to an influencer more than someone they don't know, for good and bad. So I think it's good to get to know you a little bit. And these questions doesn't really have a correct answer. They have a few different point of views that may be relevant or not. And the first hypothetical moment is we have a scammer that is on Wax, and he gets a hold of a lot of Wax, or he gets a hold of an account with a lot of NFTs. We know which account it is. What should we do as a blockchain, like a whole ecosystem? So it's not just what you should do as an OIG, what the blockchain should do about it.
Do you mean like this scammer stole the account?
He got the key. Perhaps he had a fake wallet and he got the key, and he changed the key, so he owns the account now.
Well, this is a very interesting topic, and it can result in many heated discussions. But I believe, we saw this happening in Ethereum and in Bitcoin, whatever. I mean, people that, the most kind of iconic one was in Ethereum with the DAO hack, that they basically reverted the chain, and then you had Ethereum Classic and Ethereum. And I believe, I'm really a proponent of immutability, but at the same time, if you're having a product and you're providing this to the users, I think they should be there should be a possibility to recover from such things. At the same time, I don't think it should be something that the top 21 or the Inspector Generals themselves could choose. I believe that in such cases, and this is when we come back to the concept of governance, if we don't have a thought about the case on when this could happen, for instance, if we don't have a rule. What could happen if someone stole some funds or hacks an account? Then I think the best we could do is to spin a DAO, like a decentralized autonomous organization or community or DAC, and then let people vote, and then they would decide, okay, I think, because the thing is, like, even though the hack is bad, you learn from your mistakes, right? and you will learn, depending on how big the hack was, you will learn more or less. But let's say at the end of the day, you will make the blockchain or the system more resilient and more, how is the concept, anti-fragile in the future. So if some person managed to exploit some I don't know, loophole or whatever in the system, perhaps I would say the best solution would be to spin maybe some election or some proposal and see what people think. And I'm glad it's not just one person doing that decision, not some inspector general or not the wax team or not the top producers, but basically if everyone is involved, that would be the best, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's a good answer, and both of us have seen what can happen when ECAF comes and decides, and that's not beautiful. So
you said you had another one.
The other hypothetical one is there comes a person or a team that wants to, like on Wax we have resources, we have CPU, we have net, we have RAM. On EOS there come this mining token that came and used up all CPU, so people had to use a lot of more EOS. It didn't clog the network. That's a mistake. Well, there was blockers had difficult to put the few days the transactions fully into the block. So there was some issues in the first because people running the top 21 hadn't paired everything properly. So there was some issues, but the resources were never reached full. What happened is that the free resources were out, so people could only use what they had staked. So that happened, and then you have RAM, and RAM on for anyone listening that don't know, RAM is where you store things. So you get a table with your information, like how much wax you hold, what kind of tokens you have. That is stored in RAM on chain. If you have an NFT, that is stored in RAM, and for atomic assets, that RAM is stored in the creators table, so it's not in your table. So if the creators buy RAM and start to create a lot of them, the resources get more expensive for everyone else. So if one, let's say, buys up a lot of RAM and start to spam produce NFTs, perhaps they have no meaning, he just produces them. What's your take on that, and what should the blockchain do with such a case?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, I think to begin with, I think it's a free market. So if someone wants to come and spam the network, they should be able to do it. There is nothing that should stop them from that, because maybe as you mentioned, maybe they just want to spam the network, but maybe they really want to create that many. But what will happen is that the people will not value those tokens eventually. The reason why you value some NFTs is more than others is because those are more scarce. So if you're just spamming the network with, I don't know, millions of tokens of these NFTs, well, they will just literally become spam. So I'm just thinking, if the good thing about the case that you mentioned on EOS, what happened was this ADOS, I think was called, that they were basically spamming this, and people started borrowing resources from the Rex exchange, because, well, basically the network
Rex is a resource exchange if you haven't used EOS. So you pay some EOS tokens and you get a lot of them staked to you, so you have more resources on chain. On Wax, the Wax team stakes for you, so you don't really need to care about this unless you make a lot of transactions.
Yeah, exactly. And basically what happened was that the network went from being like sharing all the available resources with all the participants into the congestion mode, where only you could use what you had staked. And in this sense, at the end of the day, what happened with that issue, if you could call it that way, was that the EOS network became even more resilient, because then EOS.io, I mean Block 1, came with some proposals and some improvements to Rex and so on. And now the network became even better for that. So I don't think if something like that would happen on Wax, of course, you perhaps want to act on it, because then it becomes very expensive for the Wax team, let's say, or Atomic Assets, like these people creating the NFTs to be paying for all this RAM. But at the end of the day, this will result in having a better blockchain and system for all. So I actually, every time I see such things, I actually get a bit glad, because it means that people are interested in using this and breaking it. Otherwise, if you see that everything is going like, I don't know, roses and rainbows, then it means two things: either no one is using it, or the system is perfect, and the second one is not true.
There are no perfect systems.
Exactly. So if this happens, it means that someone is very interested in using it to exploit it, to break it. This would make a better product in the long run. So this is like a free quality assurance engineer that you're getting when someone does something like this on your blockchain.
And I mean, that is a great answer on all our ways. And like you say, like the cloud wallet has failed a lot of us during the sales when it clogs the first seconds.
Yeah.
And if you take a step back and look at it, a few seconds doesn't really matter. But if you go in and you know that the first minted NFTs are more valuable, then those seconds are the difference between getting the first mint or the 15th mint, perhaps.
Yeah.
And the value of these are very different on the Wax blockchain.
Moreover, I mean, if you saw back in the days, I believe with the blockchain heroes, something that many people were complaining about was like, yeah, I was there on time. I set an alarm. I was waiting. When the button got enabled, I just pressed the button. Nothing worked, and then the packs were gone.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, this was a very bad experience for some. Some were very glad because they got their packs and they were fine with the process. But this taught us something, that the demand for these NFTs are higher than we anticipated. And then the Wax team, I don't know exactly what they did, but I'm sure they looked at the logs. They saw like, okay, this basically became like a denial of service attack where everyone tried to open the cloud wallet at the same time and exploded their servers and stuff. So for the next drop or big major NFT release, they basically pushed more resources into their servers, and nowadays I haven't seen any issue about it. Like today, for instance, or yesterday, there was this drop with the Alien Worlds, and I mean, I don't know, I used it, it worked just fine. And previously with JPK, the Series 2, that was also a very huge release from Tops. It just worked fine. I didn't have any issues. I don't know about you, and I didn't read any people complaining about it. So
the GPK one didn't have any cloud wallet issues. It had some payment issues because there was a third party. And that is like, okay, we have to use for fiat payments. They want fiat, and that is like $1. They had to use a third party, and they told them there will be a spike in sales. Can we have more resources? And they said, yeah. And they said, can we have more resources? They did that a few times. When the time came, they still had a rate limit, and they felt like, oh, someone is trying to pull in $200,000 in a few seconds. No, we're gonna stop this. It's not legit. So that wasn't a really issue that happened, and that is not the cloud wallet, because the cloud wallet worked fine. And today, the Alien Worlds, we had a sale of kind of a lot of packs when it dropped to the right place, and they were just gone, and there was no issue with the cloud wallet. So perhaps it fixed. We don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I remember with the Alien Worlds today, I saw there were 1,900 packs available. I said, okay, I will just go and eat and come back and maybe buy some packs. When I came back, it was gone. I was like, what? And yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I remember in the first Garbage Pail Kids release, in the first series. I mean, I had a lot of troubles with this cloud wallet, and many people had it. And this time it was, I mean, you saw that they really took the feedback and they really improved the system. So I'm very glad when such thing happens, actually.
Yeah, and when we live inside here, it goes slow. But if we take a step back, it goes pretty fast. We just want everything to go faster, and we compare it with some startup people, and startup people, they don't work like normal people. They do more job, they do it faster, they do it harder for a period of time, and then they have to slow down as well. And we have a good question here about RAM as well. Is RAM price fixed, or does it go up as more is bought? And yes, it goes up. The RAM, like the available RAM, it has a limit, and the less free RAM there is, the higher the price goes. That is like all Uniswap or all of these things, it goes up. Like what's the one on EOS? I know that you
DeFi box or something.
Yeah, well, I didn't think about it. The one that was here from the start that they use in the RAM model. They have this liquid. Not liquid one. Whatever. They have this system where you put the pool, and if one pool goes down, then the price of the other one goes up, and it balances.
Well, but it's basically a supply and demand mechanism.
Yeah.
I mean, if more people want the resource, it will become more expensive on the blockchain.
Bancor is the name of this.
yeah, Bancor. Exactly.
Bancor, yeah. So it goes up, but to add to that, servers that we run are not limited with the RAM that the chain is limited on. So technically, the block producers can sign an upgrade that we allow more RAM that will push the price down. That happened on EOS, where you add RAM for each block on EOS. So the RAM always goes up, and that pushed the market of RAM price just went up. When that come up, it started to go down, and it's pretty stable after, pretty good.
And the thing is, like, this is a system that is always evolving. So eventually, when we start getting more users, the resources will be more expensive, but at the same time, the technology becomes much cheaper. So it's like these things balance out as well. And the more people you get, the more resources you need to put into it, but the more rewards you also get from the network. So
yeah, exactly.
It's all kind of balanced out.
Yeah, and running this infrastructure is kind of expensive, but I think we have done a nice summarize of all the questions. But I think I have one more, and that is, where do you see, like, which directions should the inspector generals move going forward? I know you have said automate some more infrastructure, but do you have any more to add to that? We have touched it a bit.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's a bit difficult for me to say exactly, because, as I mentioned, I'm not in there, so I don't know exactly how they do everything at the moment. But I think the way I think about it is, like, the more we can automate, the better, because then we remove human errors or human biases, and yeah, if we can. I mean, the ideal thing would be to automate everything, and we wouldn't even need inspector generals, right? But as long as there are some subjective elements to the scoring, I think humans would need to be involved. And I think I mean, it's important, especially because, let's say, if you're not a technical person, I mean, you're a user of the WAX blockchain, and you're maybe interested in voting for the guilds, but I mean, you don't understand what is RAM, what is this guild doing, what are all these technical details. Then you need something that I see that the inspector generals do very well, is that they make this into kind of digestible information for everyone. So you can go read these reports, and maybe today, I mean, I'm slightly biased on that because I'm technical. So when I go and read those reports, I understand everything. But perhaps I think one thing that we could do better is to make it more kind of human readable, something easier to read for normal people, and explain, maybe, like, for example, I was just speaking now with you, and I just said, like, oh yeah, with Rex, when you get these resources, I mean, for me, it's like very natural because I'm in this ecosystem and I know what it is. But for some external person, they read like Rex in the report, and they might think,
that guy up there.
Exactly. They will be like, oh, is this the Rex guy there? So I mean, they will not have idea what it is, for instance. So I think I think one very important step is to kind of make these reports more digestible for normal humans, and make it like take, especially the technical part, make it more easy to understand.
Yeah, and I agree, because that is really, well, the reason for starting this YouTube channel is really two steps. The one is I kept repeating the same guides and tutorials for people over and over again, kept explaining things, and I felt, can I do it in a video? I can share it and it can be used by other people to explain it. That is one way. And the other one was that everything in blockchain is built by developers for developers, and the language is very hard and the user face is not great for people. So having someone like me that has the experience but can break it down in common tongue, common language. I probably fail sometimes and use the technical words, but I try to use it to make it simple for people to understand. I think that is very important. So that is something I agree with. Make it human readable, or whatever we should call it.
Yeah, no, I think you do a great job with all these tutorials, because that's one thing that blockchain does. I mean, we that have been here for a while, we have been like red pilled, meaning that like kind of once you get it, you cannot go back to the old way of thinking. So you see like, oh, this blockchain will do these amazing things and so on. But then if you hear about it, like, I don't know, your girlfriend or some friend hears about it that is not technical or anything, and it's like, okay, yeah, show me this, let me see how it is. I mean, as soon as you start operating it, I mean, if it's not something as simple as maybe the cloud wallet, the Wax Cloud wallet that you just sign up with, just say, Facebook account, and you just press a button like to confirm your transaction, then they will think it's too complicated. And I think all the interfaces and stuff, as you mentioned, they are made by developers. And I mean, I know this myself. Every time I want to like make an app for myself, basically the UI is like just raw data almost. While if you go and see exactly the same thing built by a designer, like the designer that has all this like human-centric approach and knows what good interaction and user experience is and stuff, then you will see like, oh, but yeah, this button is nice, and this interaction is beautiful, makes it easier to understand, or the contrast of the colors. All this stuff play a very important role when designing products for people. It's not just about blockchain in general. So I think we need more of that in our ecosystem, definitely.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I mean, the most easy blockchain experience I know is probably Nifty Wizards, because you go into channel, you sign up for a cloud wallet, you go to channel, you start to get tokens, you start to get NFTs. You don't really need to look at the cloud wallet, you just have an account. And then when you have your interest up and you start to learn about it, then you go to cloud wallet to do things with it. So it even cuts the cloud wallet, so it makes that easier, because going to the cloud wallet, what should I do now? How do I use this? Okay, I need to go to I need to sign up to an exchange now. How do I get everything? And it's difficult, especially if you're in the United States, because we have these services in the cloud wallet where you can buy wax now, but it's difficult because you're not allowed to buy wax because of legal things. From Sweden, it's very easy. You can just sign up and buy it. I can take another exchange. But that's not the case everywhere. So it still has to be more easy for people to use.
Yeah, and not only that, because I mean, even though the cloud wallet is easy to use in quotation marks, as you mentioned, you just enter there and you see something telling you like your balance is 0. These are your NFTs. This is your resources. I mean, if you have never interacted with a blockchain, you will see this and it's like, what is all this? What do I do
is that? QQ.wham.
Yeah, this random name. I mean, there is no. I mean, the first thing that should be there in all these blockchain applications and apps should be like, I don't know, like a very simple tutorial, like explaining to the user what is everything in the UI.
Just a tool, like a small tooltip. Hold over this hover, get an explanation. This is your account name. This is what you use when you want to receive tokens.
Yeah,
you hold a resource. This is not something you need to care about unless you use this blockchain a lot. This is resources.
Yeah.
NFTs. These are digital collectibles that are proven ownership and everything. Short tooltip, and this should be added to everything. I don't know. One last question before we go. Are free resources important to you? That is from the...
Once again?
Are free resources on a blockchain important to you? That is a question from the chat.
Yeah, well, I think there is no free lunch, right? I mean, you say free, but is perhaps free to the user, but not free for someone else. Someone is paying for that. So even though we say like, yeah, transactions are free on Wax or EOS, they are not really free. You're paying for this in one way or another. And if not you, it's the Wax team or the guilds or someone. But I think if we take all this, because the fees basically add like an extra layer of what is it? That makes it more difficult basically for the user. It's another barrier. So removing that makes it much easier for them to interact, and therefore you can much easily onboard more people. And I think this is what will happen with Wax. I mean, that's why I'm so excited about that. I mean, I'm sure we will start pulling in people that is not any blockchain friendly at all. Like they will be like, let's say, gamers. Maybe, yeah, sure, they maybe are used to be on a computer and so on, but you don't need to know what's a blockchain to be able to interact with it if you're using Wax, for instance. Yeah. So I think it's an amazing, very important like user experience element that we have on Wax, and the more we can abstract all these complex concepts from the user, the better, basically. Whether it is fees or it's like these resources, like I let's say if you're like an advanced user and you want to toggle these things manually for a way, you should be able to do it. But if not, then you should not even see this. You should not even know what the resource is on Wax, like this RAM, CPU, or network. You should know this.
Doesn't matter, and I hope they really hide that. I gave that as feedback in June or something to the Cloud Wallet. Hide this from the user unless they want to find it.
Yeah, exactly. Should have like a button in the settings, like I don't know, for developers or whatever.
Exactly. Like, since everything is used by people, and everything is get staked by other people.
Yeah.
So that is everything, and thank you for coming. Let's see how this election goes. Everyone can actually go to oeg.wax.io and log in and vote with your stake tokens for the candidate that you choose. And I actually think that the voting is open. Let me pull it out over our face. I might be wrong, but I think so.
October. Oh.
I'm pulling it.
I think today or tomorrow is the last.
I'm actually going here, so it's above our faces. If you go in, you can go to vote, and you see we have 4 candidates right here. You can see that the voting starts Sunday 11th, so not today, but actually tomorrow. Sukesh has said that as well in the chat. So they start tomorrow. You can go in and you can see we have Javier here. We have Big Mike is well known in the community if you're on Telegram. We have Ben and Ellie. So these are 2 people for 1 candidacy. He's the guy behind Waxplorer. So if you are doing NFTs on Wax, you know Waxplorer. He's the guy that built it. We have Sukesh, which is from Green EOS, and he's one of the guilds on Wax running for this as well. So that are the guys that are available. So go in and vote tomorrow. Even if you just have a few tokens, that an account goes in and vote has a meaning. So please do that and please participate.
I think it's very important for people to participate. I mean, it's for the best of the community, basically.
I agree. So thanks everyone for watching. I hope you get more understanding what the governance system is, get to know a little bit about Javier, and well, go and vote and listen. I will try to get interviews with all 4 of them before the election ends. So over and out. Enjoy.
Thank you very much.